Today I've got a really awesome Tirpitz brawl that actually worked out. A pretty rare thing these days, I gotta say, simply because I don't play the Tirpitz very often. But as we know, Tirpitz been in the game quite some time, and even though it has had some buffs with the Secondaries over time, it's not the best tier 8 ship, especially going against tier 10s, carriers, submarines, all of that. But this game I get a little lucky. Notice we're against tier 6s. This is one of the things that really unlocks a ship like the Tirpitz, and a lot of the other brawling ships as well. If you're in a full up tier, it's really gonna hurt. But when you're facing against 2 tiers lower than you, you can make a lot of aggressive plays that otherwise wouldn't work. But we're playing really passive right now, so what's going on? Well, we need to look at the minimap and notice our DD was AFK, so we have to wait for him. The enemy DD is played quite aggressive. It's not a good idea to push in without extra spotting, and that cap contest. It's really difficult to make that work. On top of, we don't really know what's here. We haven't really understood how much of the enemy team is here yet, so there's really no point in playing too aggressive. You'll notice I'm also trying to make use of the islands on my left here, trying not to expose my entire ship to all the enemies down south. That can lead to stalemate situations where everyone just doesn't want to push and hugs their island. It's kind of how this ACAP tends to go. But in this case, the enemy team decides to push in very aggressively. And, well, the DD lets us know he's not AFK, which is really kind of him. So now we have the ability to push in a little bit more. The enemy DD, I don't know what he's doing. He's playing far too aggressive, and he's going to lose an absolute ton of HP here, yeah. Surrey guns, they hurt. They don't reload particularly quick, but yeah, at that range, he's going to be in some serious pain. And we notice the Kansas and Bismarck pushing in. It's really important for us to get into the fight now. Otherwise, they're going to just run over our teammates because they're just higher tier ships than the majority of my teammates here. And we got a lot of cruisers here. If you've played the Kansas, the Vermont line, you'll know that shooting at cruisers is a lot of fun in that ship. And they've played very aggressively so far. So yeah, that Kansas is pushing, and it's really no surprise why. He's trying to take out our friendly cruisers. So we need to try and deal with them. The Bismarck, it appears, is pushing middle, so that means we can take an isolated fight against this Kansas, as well as maybe kill off this enemy destroyer. That'd be huge. That way I could push out from this island without having to worry about torpedoes all that much. So I leave my secondaries on the Kansas because I think to myself, it's not really likely my secondaries will hit at this point. They haven't gotten accurate enough yet. So I decide to shoot my main guns at the DD, hopefully finishing them off. And that way my secondaries can continue to get a little more accurate on this Kansas. The way secondaries work these days, if you didn't know, this is something that was changed quite a while ago. They have a ramp up period where they aren't very accurate to start with. And then over time, as they're firing at the same target, they get more and more accurate. So something to keep in mind that we don't want to always be clicking on different secondary targets, but there are times where we do want to be switching targets. It's very important, but this I don't think was one of those scenarios. Normally I would start to just click on a DD if they had more HP, but I was pretty confident my main guns could finish him off, and I wanted to get some damage in on this Kansas. So now that the DD is down, like I said, we can push. There's an enemy shores that's very aggressive. It's a great position for me, except he has torpedoes. We know they're 4-kilometer torpedoes though, so as long as he's not within 4 kilometers of us, we know he can't torp us. That's just what it comes down to. We're going flat broadside to him. I'm not going to turn in. If anything, I'm going to turn out slightly to try and avoid his torps as much as I can. And he's just going bow into us. So if he's launched his left side torps, he launched them from too far away, so we don't have to deal with them. We switch our secondary target to put a little more pressure on the shores, and once I'm sure I can get a good shot into his citadel, yeah, we just take him out. The torpedoes, like we said, are 4 kilometers, they don't land, and now we can focus on the Kansas again. The Bismarck is going behind an island, so it's okay that we're showing broadside to the enemy spawn. We know there's really nothing else there to worry about. We just get a 1v1 on this Kansas, so we're going to run him down and try and take him out. I think it's really important to notice, though, I held my shot on these shores, and that really comes down to a weird situation when enemy ships are bow in and turning. When they're switching over from showing their left broadside to their right broadside, ships kind of drift, and the aiming system isn't great at compensating for that. and it's very easy to just whiff salvos that should hit at very close ranges. You can see in these Kleber clips a very extreme example, but even against cruisers, it can happen at closer ranges, especially when you need to hit that shot. It's important to just wait. I think it's a very reasonable thing to do, to wait and make sure you get the right shot. Otherwise, that Shores is just going to take me out with his other side of torpedoes, and I wouldn't have been too happy about that. I suppose I could have torped in response if I missed, but I find it just way better to wait and guarantee that good shot. As far as our secondaries missing right now, if you've noticed that, yeah, border mechanics are fun. And yeah, we're going to take way longer than we should to actually take out this Kansas in a brawl. In this kind of scenario, I mean, our main guns are really not helping us either. It is a full secondary build, so it's not like we can expect the best accuracy out of a Tirpitz, but it's a little disappointing to see basically no damage out of these guns so many times in a row here. At this point, he's so slow on the border that we should be doing okay with our secondaries now finally being able to hit him, and hopefully we can take him out. I decide to turn away to try and get a little closer to the enemy Bismarck and Aoba, trying to set myself up for the next fight. Although, again, I kind of overestimated the Tirpitz guns and their ability to just take things out. Yeah, we're just... I don't know, we're just missing. Border mechanics are pretty frustrating, especially when an enemy ship has good acceleration. It's one of those buffs that the Vermont line got, was improved acceleration. Minotaur has this, Ledgemont Des Moines has this, where they can almost skid along the border indefinitely. It's kind of odd, and one of the big issues with the game that really doesn't come up all that much, but it's a bit of a problem. And one of the reasons why it took me so long to take that Kansas out. The other is just that Tirpitz is a Tirpitz, right? This is not the most accurate battleship in the world. Fortunately for me, though, I do get a little bit lucky in this game where that Kansas could have easily been 20K'ing my superstructure. He was aiming low or getting poor dispersion. I'm broadside to a Bismarck, and I'm taking almost no damage, so there is an element of luck in this game, certainly, but it's a lot of fun when I do get a match like this where everything seems to line up right for a Tirpitz brawl. It doesn't happen very often anymore, but I really do enjoy it. As far as the Bismarck versus Tirpitz comparison goes, I would always rather be in a Bismarck. That might surprise you, but it comes down to Bismarck having a hydro. The torpedoes on the Tirpitz generally aren't the most useful tool. This Bismarck, really what he should have done is kited. That's really what it comes down to. Whoever's kiting away in a brawl secondary engagement is going to win, because secondaries are far more accurate and far better at hitting the vulnerable superstructure parts of a ship when the enemy ship is pushing into your secondaries. If the enemy ship is running away from your secondaries, they're going to tend to hit the stern and not really do too much damage. So that's one of the reasons that I think this Bismarck could have easily won this engagement, even with so much support here for me. But as we get closer, the Tirpitz does get a bit of an advantage with those torpedoes. Although Bismarck can hold its own with that hydro, showing you where those torpedoes are, sometimes the Tirpitz player will just launch them a little bit too early. Overall, though, I think Bismarck is just a little bit better, since that hydro can help you a lot against submarines. Pretty big issue these days. And having a hydro on a battleship really makes it a lot easier to play. The reason that you'd play Tirpitz over a Bismarck, though, is the ability to just move whatever commander you want to, right? Being a premium, it's kind of nice to just slot whatever 19, 21 point commander you have onto your ship and then be essentially maxing the ship out. And Bismarck, you have to grind up a whole new commander for, so it's kind of nice to have that luxury with the premium ship. Although, if they're both maxed out, I do think a Bismarck is going to win most of the time. I make a mistake here, though, multiple in this video, but this is the really big one, where I use my damage control for a fire that's about to run out. I often hold my damage control for situations like this, where I finally finish off that close range ship, the brawl with the Bismarck is over, so now I can damage control reasonably safely, although the Aoba does manage to light us up on the fire again. But I forgot to look at the timer. It's like, what, 2 seconds left on the fire? There's no reason I should have been damage conning there. I just totally forgot. It's been a bit of a habit of mine to damage control once the brawl is over. But That's a bit of a mistake, something to watch out for, but some good things to learn from in this video, and I hope you had fun watching too. Tirpitz Brawl, it actually happened. No torpedoes, unfortunately, but a ton of secondary hits. And even with the secondary XP being nerfed, we still, I think, managed to be top scorer, showing that we were actually pretty useful for our team as well. As for the build, we're running pretty much a full secondary build here, including close quarters combat, 10% main battery reload when somebody's within secondary range. It's pretty good as it turns out. And when I'm trying to go all in on secondaries, it's pretty nice when I'm trying to play that playstyle. Although we give up healing, we give up concealment to get that, but it can be quite valuable if you get the right map and matchmaker to make it work. Fire prevention, I still think, is a must-have because fires are so good at burning battleships out that we want to limit that as much as possible. Adrenaline rush, secondaries, of course. You could run IFHE. Notice this commander, though, is for the Preußen, where we don't really need IFHE. It has bigger secondaries that all pen 32 millimeters. The reason you take this is to get those 105s to actually pen 32 millimeters. They only pen 26 as it stands, which is good enough for a lot of lower tier battleships and cruisers all the time. So I haven't really fully invested in that right now, but if you just have a Bismarck or just a Tirpitz commander, it can be very, very good. Grease the gears, though, is always nice to have. And gun feeder, I didn't really use it much this game, but it can be very valuable for those bow-on battleship engagements where you just don't have overmatch, or if a DD's rushing you and you need to switch to HE, or you have the opportunity to, it can be very good as well. As for the equipment, pretty standard here. We're trying to get a little bit of concealment back, and then tankiness, secondaries, tankiness, and secondaries. It's a full secondary build, right? That is what we're going for here, and it works pretty well. The main guns didn't do too bad as well, but it can be a lot of fun. You just need the right matchmaker, which isn't always going to happen. It certainly doesn't happen for me very often, so I had to show you guys the one time that it did. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.